Dear beloved, welcome back to the podcast. I am so sorry that we took a little hiatus there unexpectedly. My computer was in getting some repairs, and so we took a little hiatus for a little bit, but we are back in full swing now. And today I want to talk about a topic that's really close to me, but isn't always close to everyone else, but it's something that I really love, so I wanted to share it because I really love it. And that's the topic of letter writing or letters or in general, right? So I don't know about you guys, but I love getting things in the mail, right? Getting letters in the mail. I actually really enjoy writing letters. I'm not the best writer at all, and sometimes that stops me from writing the letters that I want to write, but I've kind of gotten to the point where it's like I love receiving letters so much, and it brings me so much joy, no matter if the letter is written super well or not. So, am I holding back from giving someone else that joy of receiving a letter, letting them know that I was thinking of them and things like that, because I think I'm not that good at writing a letter, right? So, that's something that's been on my heart and mind recently, and so I've just decided, you know what, we're just going to write the dang letter, and it's going to be wonderful. Letters have always been super special to me. I have a lot of siblings. I'm the fifth out of seven, and by the time I got to the fifth kid, my parents weren't saving baby books of all of us or anything like that. But one thing that they did save for me was a box of all the letters that I received when I was a baby. So like at my baby shower, actually, I don't think that I had a baby shower, but at my birth, at my baptism, a couple of my first birthdays, things like that. And I remember finding that box when I was able to read. I don't know, I was probably like 8 or something, and poring over those letters and being able to read what people wrote was the coolest experience. I absolutely loved it. And I would, package up that box, put all the letters back inside, so that the next time I could pull it out again and read them all over again, because it's something that I really, really enjoyed. That kind of, I think for me, was the first time that I really loved or can remember my love for letters coming to fruition, and then I had a couple of pen pals growing up, and nothing was more exciting than getting a letter in the mailbox. As a kid, you run out to the mailbox every day and you check, and you usually bring bills home or random stuff for other people. But when your name is on a letter, it's like, whoa. And so that was like super fun. And we'd, write it on notebook paper with our pencils and like nothing fancy, but it was the coolest experience getting letters as a kid. And so I don't know, I've always just had this love for letters. And then comes, the rom-coms, right? You read these books like Jane Austen, who, they really communicated using letters in that time period. And we didn't have texting or email or, phone calls. So they had to rely on letters. And that was reading those books with those letters and Little Women and how they left letters in that little mailbox between the March house and Laurie's house, right? That always intrigued me, and I could relate to it and be like, oh yeah, when there's like a letter that has your name on it, it's so special, right? And reading these books, it was so cool. And then watching the movie adaptations of these books, it's like brings it to a whole nother level, because you get to see the care and the time that it takes to write a handwritten letter that really explains a whole conversation, really. And just like that it's more of an art than a thing to do, if that makes sense. And it, in a crazy turn of events, the way that my life has turned out, I have actually had the opportunity to design my own stationery and offer them as products to the world. And that is like the coolest thing for me. Like I geek out all the time about it because it's like I have this love for writing letters and I want to hand that on to people. And I think they're so important. And to have something beautiful to have your note be delivered to someone is like the icing on the cake, right? And I really see it as more of an art than something to do. To write a letter, to write a thank you note, to write a birthday card, you know, so often we are used to the bare minimum, right? Happy birthday, love so-and-so. Thinking of you today, love so-and-so. That's kind of what we'd say in text these days, right? Oh, shoot, I forgot it was someone's birthday. Thank you, Facebook, for reminding me, and here's a happy birthday text, right? And if you do think of writing a card, right, to maybe someone who doesn't have a phone yet, like I think of my little nieces and nephews who I, write a quick little note to. They can't read, right? Things like that where you're just like, happy birthday, bud. Like, can't believe you're 2, whatever. There's that, right? There's I did the thing. They know I'm thinking of them, etc. Check that off my to-do list. And there's also the other side of it, which is an art, right? Of sharing in who you are and sharing that with another person. And this kind of came full circle for me when I realized that writing a letter shouldn't always be about the person you're writing to. I mean, yes, there's an element to that. And especially if it's like a birthday card or something like that. But when it's correspondence, in maintaining or growing a relationship, whether it be with a friend, like a pen pal, or someone who's just far away, right? That kind of communication and that kind of correspondence requires you to be thinking about yourself and conveying your thoughts and your experiences in a way that someone else could receive it, right? I, for so long, was stuck on well, do I just ask a bunch of questions in a letter, right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's not like a text, right? But when that switch flipped and I realized, oh, I need to convey what my thoughts are, what I've been up to, my thoughts and feelings, etc., that helped me a lot to reframe kind of letter writing in general. So the other day I asked on my Instagram stories what types of scenarios that people had that they are writing letters for, and to kind of come up with some ideas for how to write a letter for them, right? So one of the things that came through on that was like an occasion, like what do you say to someone who is celebrating a birthday or an anniversary or something like that. And for that, I would say, you start off with addressing them, addressing the occasion that you are sending them a letter for, and sharing how you have seen them grow through this, if it's a birthday this year, or an anniversary this year, or if it's a graduation, like grown through this season of life that they were a student or something like that, right? Sharing what you think has been their transformation and encouraging them, right? I love sharing encouraging things in letters because it's something that you can read and reread if you choose to. And so having something encouraging there for them to, celebrate where they're at, but also encourage them in their moving forward is important. So I always love that. Do a little bit of encouragement. And then I always like to add, this is how I've seen you grow, and then whatever ending you want to have with that. So that's like an occasion. Another one that came through was for just for no reason, right? Reaching out to a friend. These ones are so fun because these are just some of the most fun to receive, right? No occasion, literally just randomly. And these are, again, like I said, times for you to share about you and your life. So I would start off by like, hey, how's it going? It's been so long. Can't believe it's been so long. Here's what I've been up to. And then share like some highlights, or, share some highlights and then maybe a memory that made you think of them and why you're reaching out, right? So like, I was walking by, the tree that we used to climb when we were kids, and I thought of you and thought I would update you and just reach out, things like that. Those are my favorite things to include in a just because letter, right? Another type of letter that often is a lot for people and it stops them from writing them because they don't know where to start is a letter that has more meaning behind it, like a love letter or something that you want to convey to someone. And again, in these ones, I tend to lean more towards expressing my experience and where I'm at and what I've been up to, right? Because that, for the person receiving that, that's what they want to receive. They want to receive a piece of you, and that's why you're writing a letter. It's not a series of questions that you're asking them to respond to. I'm sure there can be some of that, but the majority of the letter, you want it to be you sharing yourself with them. So that's what I would say for that. Some of my favorite things to read of the saints are actually their letters. The saints wrote a lot of letters to throughout their lives, of course. They have, and of course, we have saints now in our modern times that used other means of communication that are more modern to us. But for a lot of saints, it was writing and writing things down. And I love reading the different letters that the saints wrote. It shows me so much of their humanity and just their personhood and how they related to other people, not, in this way where maybe this same saint had written a treatise on something, right? Left us with their work, that it's a little bit more personal because they're writing to somebody in their life that they have a connection to, that they aren't expecting the rest of the world to see, right? And so it shows you a little bit more into who they are in a deeper, more authentic way. One of my favorite stories about a saint is Saint Catherine of Siena. She was a firecracker, right? She is a doctor of the church for good reason. I recently was reading about her life, and I didn't realize that a lot of her life she was hidden away in her parents' home, acting like a hermit, right? Acting like a cloistered person in her family's home, right? I don't really think of that when I think of St. Catherine of Siena. When someone thinks of St. Catherine of Siena, they think of how bold she was in talking to the Pope and getting him back to Rome. So in that time, there was a period of, now that I'm on the spot, I don't know how many years, but quite a few popes that they left Rome because they felt that it was unsafe to be in Rome, and they moved to Avignon, France, which is where the popes resided for, again, I don't remember how many years, but a good number of years. There were I don't know how many popes, but quite a few who reigned in Avignon. And she was asked by God to send a letter to the Pope at the time and telling him to come back to Rome. And she did. And it was due to her answering the call and writing these very strongly worded letters to the Pope. I believe it was Pope Gregory something, and getting him back to Rome. Of course, he was like, who are you and why are you writing me these letters? She wrote to him multiple times and encouraged him to move the papacy back to Rome. And so it was I mean, those letters were the catalyst for that move. The way that God used her and her writing was just incredible for the church, for history, for all of it. And so I think of her when I think of like a really powerful letter that literally changed the face of history and the face of the church. So she's pretty great. And I don't think she is necessarily considered the patron saint of letters, but I guess we can adopt her as that. So I think of her when I write my letters. I also love reading JP2's letters, and St. Therese also has some great letters that I love to read. She wrote a lot to her sisters, her biological sisters, who also happen to be her sisters as sisters, but especially her biological sisters. So that's always a good time to read those. But I hope that this encouraged you to just pick up the pen and write the darn letter, right? You don't have to wait until you have the perfect occasion or the perfect words to go along with your sentiments. Messy action is better than no action, as we hear all the time. But it's true. And if your thought behind writing a letter is to let that person know that they are seen, known, and loved and heard, then that's the action of writing the letter, is conveying that. So do the darn thing, pick up the letter, write it, and send it over, because I really think it's important. And like I mentioned, I have the pleasure of designing my own stationery and designing it for you to, like I said, have a beautiful way to write letters to other people. So I would be so over the moon if some of this happy mail going out had my designs on it. Like seriously, it makes me so excited to know that, you know, what I can do in my own time, in my own space, impacts other people and can put a smile on someone else's face, not because they know who I am, but because you know who I am and you sent it to them. So I think that's just really cool. So if you want to check out any of my stationery, you can at my website, thebelovedcollective.com, and in the show notes, I'll have a link to the shop directly. But wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.